The Indie Writers Club is brought to you by Publish Drive. With one click, self-publish your ebooks, audiobooks and print books to thousands of stores and libraries worldwide. And now you can start for free forever. Publish Drive's new free plan lets you publish your first ebook to 35 stores worldwide absolutely free. No subscription fees, no commissions. Keep 100% of the royalties. Get your titles online in just a few minutes at publishdrive.com.
It's the Indie Writers Club with Cara Clare and James Blatch. A place to relax, chat, learn and vent about life as an independent author. Get episode alerts and links at indiewritersclub.com. Now, here's Cara and James.
Hello and welcome to the Indie Writers Club with me, James Blatch.
And me, Cara Clare.
Hi, Cara Clare.
Hi, James Blatch. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, actually. Doing all right.
I feel like I'm seeing you quite a bit in person at the moment.
I know. Sorry about that.
It's a bit weird.
Disconcerting. Yes, it's 2 weeks in a row where we've met IRL in the week. So yesterday we went to a Tudor stately home to check out our writing retreat, which we are definitely going to organise. Very likely to be June the 28th, 29th and 30th, those 3 days. So I think that is going to be the dates we're going for. We are just waiting for confirmation. The venue is going to be amazing in summer. Yeah. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. So we'll have places to obviously hang out inside a sort of oak-panelled library room, which will be ours exclusively.
It was amazing. I walked in and I was like, oh my God.
There's a piano, which you've promised to play.
I promised no such thing.
There's bedrooms. The whole house is a converted, as I say, stately homes. There's plenty of rooms, twins, doubles, singles. There's a nice dining hall. It's not quite Hogwarts, but it's not far off. Kind of rows of table in the dining hall.
It's part of Cambridge University, isn't it?
It is.
So you can imagine. And honestly, driving up to it, I was like, my goodness.
Yeah. And what else is there? There's a cafe in there. So we're going to do... So the plan at the moment is to do 3 nights, bed and breakfast, 2 dinners on the first night and the last night. And the middle night, we'll have transport into Cambridge. Now, I did think we are right next to the American War Cemetery. And I suspect the Americans might like to visit that. They probably should if they're American and they're over here. And I'd be very happy to do a mini tour of that war cemetery one early evening before we go out. If people want to do that as well, it's a very moving, powerful place to go. And it's just like, it's like 2 miles. We might even be able to walk from the place to there. So we'll do 3 nights, 2 dinners. 1 night we'll go into Cambridge. We'll probably organise an event. It'll be optional. The event will be optional. There'll be a dinner in Cambridge will be optional. You could just go and do your own thing. There's lots of bars and
maybe punting.
Punting, yeah, something like that. So, and then the days we're thinking we would start with an organised session where we'll go over something perhaps reasonably formal in the morning, like a session's been planned out. Then have our writing sprints, and you can write by yourself on a bench in the garden in the sunlight, or you can have the soft seat area in the building, in the room, or you can do sprints around the table, which I think would be quite a fun thing to do as well. Then we'll have lunch together. I'm going to get a price for lunch. So I don't know whether to include. Personally, I don't eat 3 hot meals a day.
No, I don't. And the thing I worry about,
I'm happy just to have a packet of crisps at lunchtime.
I don't want it to be like a 3-course meal that then takes up too much time in the day. No. And some people don't eat a big lunch. There is a cafe. Yeah. So I don't know. So I think price it up and we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have a look, but we might leave lunch to people's own devices. The only thing is you are in the middle of nowhere. So if you do eat lunch, if that is a meal you always eat every day, you are going to have lunch there because unless you get a cab there was a pub in the village, I suppose. And then the afternoon, more of a discussion-y type topic. So what people want to bring, they want to ask us questions about. There'll be other people probably around the table with expertise in areas and we can have a discussion there, and then more writing in the afternoon. And then in the evening, knock back a few drinks, have dinner. Perhaps we'll organise a
song
quiz.
Around the piano.
We could organise a quiz maybe in the evening.
Oh, a quiz. I love a quiz. Yeah. Yeah.
If you sign up to this, if you're early adopters to this and sign up, we might allocate you some tasks. Like, for instance, a couple of you could come up with a quiz for one evening, something like that. So it's going to be...
So you're saying sign up and we'll make them do work?
And then work, yeah. So, and the great tradition of self-publishing,
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're not on the wait list already, now we think we're going to have 20 spots. We don't want it to be too much bigger than that because we think that's about the biggest you want it to be to have some intimacy and to make it feel special. I have to say we have already got more than 20 names on the wait list, but not everyone's going to necessarily commit to it. So that doesn't mean you won't get a spot. It's not first come, first served at this stage. You can just join the wait list, but it will be when we issue the tickets to be first to buy them. So
and you will be able to share rooms as well. We should say that. We're working out a price for if you want to come with a friend and share and make it a little bit...
we are doing that. So we'll have the prices, the last thing we'll announce when we've done all the sums and we've got all the figures, and we're still waiting for some at the moment. But if you go to indiewritersclub.com/retreat, make sure you're on the wait list, and that will give you an opportunity to sign up and get tickets. So that's exciting. I mean, it is a beautiful building. And I'm
in the summer, seeing it yesterday and kind of remembering that when we go in June, it's going to be, late nights of sunshine, hopefully.
Yeah.
We'll have light until quite late in the evening. So we'll really be able to make the most of the facilities. And even if it does rain, it's so sort of quintessentially British, that kind of feel of the stately home and everything. It's just, I think it's been fantastic.
Do you think we'll be able to set up croquet on the lawn?
I hope so. I think we should make that mandatory on the booking request. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. That'll be an exciting thing to do. And it'll be our first one. I suspect there'll be many more in the future, but this will always be the first one. So
it will.
Be square. Okay. We've got a couple of other things to talk about. Then we're going to talk about reviews and how to handle them.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I know we're both feeling a bit depressed because we both read our one-star reviews to prepare for this chat. But we'll move on to that in a minute. Now, I noticed something on TikTok which I forwarded to you, which we both thought was very interesting.
You sent me the video and I was like, what is this? What are we looking at? And then I realized what I was looking at, which was an event at HarperCollins, the big HarperCollins trad publisher. What was it called? Let's Think Indie.
Yeah, Let's Think Indie, like an indie mindset day for what looked like for their staff, with lots of sort of events and things going on. And it's almost exactly, to be fair, what I predicted in my WWM contribution to what's going to happen in 2025 is it's not so much the merging of companies at publishing level, it's the merging of methods.
Yeah, so and we talked about this in our predictions episode, didn't we? Where we said that we're noticing on TikTok, publishers are taking a lot of lessons from indies in the way that they're setting up their TikTok shops, and they're doing all these special editions and things like that. But I think it was just quite shocking to actually see it like that. And obviously there was no sort of real content disclosed. It was just sort of little clips of their giant screen with their PowerPoints on. And it's like, what are they talking about? I hope there was a slide. Which ones of our secrets are they giving away?
I hope there was a slide with you and me. Well, do you know what I think? This might be me slightly being egocentric about this, but I do wonder if the establishment of Vinci Books has sent some ripples through the big trad, because Mark Smith, who's the CEO of our company, is quite well known in book circles, and he's built 2 big traditional publishing companies himself. Now, he's all in and very enthusiastic about the whole indie mindset and culture. And I think maybe that's the final wake-up call for the big publishers, big trad publishers, that they need to be doing things differently. They're missing something, and that's what they're desperate to catch up on.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think we should feel, because I think there's some people sort of maybe feeling a bit nervous about that. And I don't think we should really. I think, first of all, let's take it as a giant compliment that they've kind of finally recognized that we know what we're doing and that we've got things we can teach them. But also, I think it's just going to open up different avenues, different ways that we can work together and build businesses that work for both sides. So it's going to be really interesting this year. I'm really intrigued to see what new things kind of crop up as a result of them finally noticing us.
Yes, here we are. Now, the other thing is that TikTok disappeared. Yeah. There was us sat here last week going, it won't happen. It disappeared in America, and then it came back about 24 hours later. And I have to say, though, on Sunday, when it had disappeared, I was actually hit by a real sense of loss because it felt really strange waking up and suddenly going, all these readers who are this community that I've built, these readers who've supported me from day one, whose little faces always pop up when I post a video and who always message me and comment, they were gone. Their accounts were still there. You could still see their account, but they couldn't see us and they couldn't obviously post anything new. And I felt really, really I was surprised by how emotional I felt about it. And then I think lots of things started popping up with people who were saying how TikTok had changed their lives and now it was going to disappear. Yeah, I think the day before I felt emotional, watching a lot of creators' last video, what they thought, as far as they were concerned, was going to be it. And some of them were valedictory, is that the right word? Sort of, hand shaking their fist in the air, but what was happening. Others were just sad and saying, or just grateful that they had the opportunity to build this community. And some of them were really quite moving. But,
yeah.
I mean, the whole thing was utterly ridiculous. I've, said this for years about this whole TikTok ban. And I did have one person email me saying, good riddance to TikTok. You have no idea that they live stream people killing themselves, and it's a terrible social media platform. I was quite emotional about the whole TikTok thing. I was feeling so angry. I didn't ignore it, which I should have done. I emailed back, said, you're wrong on every point, and pointed out that actually the live streaming of horrific events, including mass shootings, is far more common on Facebook than it is on TikTok. And TikTok are miles ahead in suppressing adult material. They're not 100%, of course they aren't, but Facebook are actually taking some of those restrictions off at the moment.
Yeah, Facebook is stopping censoring and fact checking. And I mean, I know from my personal experience how careful I have to be about the content that I put on TikTok.
Well,
and all I'm doing is promoting spicy books. Like I have to be so careful about the words that I'm using. So, and on Facebook and Instagram's a little bit different, but that's not the same. That's not the case.
Well, Instagram, OnlyFans account holders, the adults who use for live porn sites, they have to have an Instagram account. It's one of the rules of being on OnlyFans. You have to have a real world social media account. And Instagram's where they all are, so that you're visible. It's not done anonymously. And that wouldn't happen on TikTok, because TikTok simply don't allow that level of adult references to adult material. So from that point of view, I did point out to her, that's not why they're banning TikTok, by the way, because that's a problem all social media sites have, is inappropriate material.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the same
of this China thing.
Yeah, it's the same conversation with all social media, which is there are really toxic parts, really awful parts, but there are also really amazing parts, and people who found community and found support and found information and advice on things that they simply weren't having access to before. So anyway, for now, it's back, but it's definitely made me feel quite aware that I've got to work harder at capturing my audience and persuading them to sign up to a newsletter, follow me on other platforms, because despite keep saying, follow me on Instagram, go on places, very few of them did. So it was that kind of like, oh God, they've disappeared. And are all those people going to go, oh my God, okay, what were all the, 1,500 authors that I followed? I'll go and track them down in other places. They're not. So, I think it hammers home the importance of that back matter, giving away something at the end of your book to persuade people to sign up for your newsletter, all that kind of stuff, making sure that you own your readership in some way so that you can contact them if any of these big things, go south.
Yeah, that's a really important takeaway, that you don't own any of those customer lists. They are owned by Meta and TikTok and Amazon. You do need a mailing list. The mailing list is the only thing you own. And as long as you download it regularly, even if the mailing list service provider you've signed up with, whether it's ConvertKit, whatever, MailerLite, if they suddenly disappear one night, you've still got your list. You own that and you can just move it around. What you can't do is move your Facebook group somewhere. Facebook close your group suddenly.
Yeah, exactly. Or if Amazon disappears or shuts down your account for some nefarious reason or whatever, if you've got a mailing list of people, you can go sell your books direct from your website. You've got options. But if you don't own that core readership, if you don't have any way to contact them yourself, then, they're not going to seek you out. They're just not. Maybe there's a handful of super fans who will, but the rest of them, they're not going to go track you down if you disappear.
Yeah. So TikTok, anyway, it came back. I mean, the whole thing was ridiculous.
Yeah.
The actual moment of taking it down just showed how ridiculous it was. We talked about the fact that people moved over to Red Note, which is kind of much closer to the Chinese Communist Party than TikTok anyway. But also, it just felt to me like this is, you want to do this because you're opposed to China and their methods, but this is what China do. They censor their internet. They tell their people what they can and can't see on the internet and on television. So you suddenly become a dictator in free speech policing to protect the American people from what? From the dictatorial anti-free speech country. So none of it made any sense to me. having said that, it's not really gone away. As far as I can see, all that's happened is that Donald Trump has given assurances to ByteDance that despite the owners of TikTok, that despite the legislation being in place, they're not going to pursue them because they are exposed to billions of dollars of fines. But
yeah, I mean, I think he's given them another 90 days, hasn't he? And said that they don't have to sell all of TikTok. I think he said he would accept 50% if they sold 50% of the US part. But I did see a really interesting video from an IT specialist, which someone sent to me, who was saying they think that it's already gone through, that part of it's already been sold because the going dark element of the US just kind of blacking out for 24 hours seemed like exactly what would happen if they were shutting down their servers and having to move them elsewhere.
Mm.
So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Are owned by Oracle. They're used by Oracle, which is a big American firm, and they're based in the US. I mean, Zhou, the CEO, the excellent CEO, I think, of TikTok, spelt all this out to the politicians some time ago.
I mean, if you've seen some of the videos of him, I saw one the other day where they were saying, so does TikTok connect to the home Wi-Fi? Mm-hmm. And he was like,
yes.
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question. What are you asking me? And they were like, does TikTok access the Wi-Fi? And he was like, well, it has to have access to Wi-Fi to work, but it's not like
just a yes or no, please.
Yeah, it just anyway.
I did also see Mr. Beast, Jimmy, what's his name?
Yeah,
saying that he's just come out of a room of billionaires and they're ready to buy whatever amount of TikTok they want to sell to them.
Yeah, but did you see how many members of Congress who voted, or Supreme Court who voted for the ban, own shares in Meta?
Mm-hmm.
And
now I'm also looking at all the stuff that Mark Zuckerberg said to cozy up to the kind of that side of politics, the kind of the side that wanted to close TikTok down, which was sort of largely, as far as I can tell, sort of largely Republican-led in the US. I think it was cross-partisan across both houses, but there was quite a lot of anti-China stuff from that side of the house, which is probably why Mark Zuckerberg, knowing that he was going to look like the bad boy for a bit, after TikTok was shut down and people having to migrate to Reels or whatever he owns, that sort of made me feel quite cynical about all that stuff, all that, appearing on the Joe Rogan show and stuff is just kind of cozying up to people, knowing that he's mitigating how bad they're going to look because they've lobbied for TikTok to be closed down and it's being closed down. Well, and he's done all of that for nothing now because TikTok's back.
Yeah. And I know it feels like we've talked about this a lot, but I think you can't underestimate the impact that TikTok BookTok had on the self-publishing community. People who've just been coming into it recently might not realize, but when you and I first started, the only way to access readers was paid ads. That was how, there was some promos, that sort of thing around, and social media was a thing, but the organic reach where you don't have to pay anything apart from just investing your time just didn't exist. So I think that's why it's been such a huge topic of conversation, is because it really changed the entire landscape. Like HarperCollins are having an event about indie publishing, which I guarantee they would not be having if BookTok hadn't happened and things hadn't exploded the way they have. So I think that's why it's been so hugely, in the forefront of our minds this whole time, because it really did change everything.
I'll tell you something interesting I've just noticed. So I was going to look up how many times hashtag BookTok has been used, because I've used that stat in my presentations over the last couple of years. And it was, I remember it being like 18.2 billion, something like that the first time. The last time I looked up the stat to update my presentation, it was 233 billion. I've just looked it up, and today it is 44.2 million. I wonder if that reset. I wonder if this is also evidence that there was some sort of reset of TikTok during that blackout period. Because 44 million, that is a few weeks, a few days rather.
Yeah, because when you think about how many videos are getting individually, millions of views, that's
26,000 posts with BookTok with an emoji, 1,600 posts with BookTok with a heart, 23,000 BookTok recommends. These are all far too low.
They are far too low.
So that's interesting. Yeah. There's been a reset of the number of hashtags are being reposted. So more than just turning it off and back on again happened.
Yeah. And I think it's not a case of just, woohoo, it's back, everybody's fine. There's going to be a period of adjustment with things happening with the algorithm and stuff. I mean, my views have been horrifically low the last few days. Yeah. And I think I said before, they're already skewing naturally more towards the UK and Germany. But anyway, I think we're procrastinating because we don't want to do this next part, which is, we promised that we were going to talk about reviews. how to handle reviews. And in order to do that, we were going to look up our own bad reviews. And the irony in the fact that we're doing an episode to give people advice on how not to take it personally. And we both got on this call and went, well, I feel a bit rubbish now because I've spent the morning looking at my terrible reviews.
Yeah. I mean, the 1-star review will come in for you at some point in your career. It's unavoidable. Your book is not for everyone. And so there's a few big things to say at the beginning about these reviews. The first thing is that there's a sort of expression in scientific terms, statistical terms, which is statistically irrelevant. The sample size is not big enough for this to mean anything, which we should absolutely apply. In my case, I've got 22 1-star ratings with 5 with reviews. I have 2,020 overall reviews and 4.5 out of 5 stars on average. So those 5 1-star reviews are statistically irrelevant, but it's quite hard to read them and feel that they're irrelevant because they're people who've bought your book, read them, and then fed back. And I'm quite happy to read them out. I'm not happy to read them out, but I will read them out. So here are the 5. First one, children's book. This book appears to have been written by AI. Technically dismal, with a hero RAF pilot who spends half the book in tears and lacks any authority. All silly and unlikely. Next one, dull. Most boring book I've ever purchased. Next one, written by an 11-year-old. Really a book for kids, no substance. It's interesting, twice they said that. Next one, slow. The only thing thrilling about this book is to finally finish it. There's far too much rhetoric and far too little action. Do not waste your time on this one. And finally, 1 star, what a waste, bad. I don't mind that, but that last one's fine.
What a waste, bad.
Most boring book I've ever purchased. I also don't mind as well, because I think so what are we going to say here? We're going to say, first of all, statistically irrelevant, ignore them, pay no attention to it, read them if you want, but remember, there's 2,000 other ratings there of at least 2, 3, 4, 5 star. In my case, more than 50%, 63% are 5 star. So that's a really strongly reviewed book. It's my best reviewed book. That's my first book. Long before AI, by the way, was around to help me write it, despite what Amazon customer said on the 20th of June, 2024. But there is another side to this. Is at what point, Cara, do we start paying attention to bad reviews?
You know what? It's really difficult, isn't it? Because like you said, you just picked up on it there. You went, 2 people have said that it's written for children. So in your head, you go, 2 people have said the same thing. So therefore, it must have some relevance. It must have a kernel of truth in it. But again, that's only 2 people out of how many reviews. I think personally, I don't do this myself. I've had other people do it for me because I don't want to sit and read through all my bad reviews all the time. I tend to mine the 3 stars for things that are useful, because I think if somebody 1 stars a book, they really hate it. 1 star is that really was not for them. It wasn't their cup of tea. They really hated it. And I think a lot of them enjoy writing really mean reviews. If it's a 3 star, I'm more inclined to take that seriously, because it's kind of like, I didn't hate it. They didn't viscerally hate this book. There were just some things that they didn't like, and possibly you can learn more from those. I mean, so I went onto Goodreads for this. And I never go to Goodreads, because Goodreads is an absolute cesspit it's a brilliant place for readers. Goodreads is for readers. It's not for authors. So that's why I say to people, don't go over there, because a lot of them, their hobby is reviewing books. So they are going to write more detailed reviews than the ones that you get on Amazon. And a lot of them really enjoy writing like quite mean reviews. So that's not, something that we need to be concerned about. And they're absolutely entitled to do that. But I deliberately forced myself to go onto Goodreads because I know I've got more awful reviews over there. So I've got, where are we? 7,633. This is on my first in series. Of those, 200 are 5 stars, 2,500 are 4 stars, 2,000 are 3 stars, 500 2 stars, and 159 1-star reviews. I mean, so the ones that I think actually they have a fair point, and this is how the book was written. There are a lot of 1 stars that say this is quite formulaic, which it was. I was writing reverse harem. I was writing it to market. I was writing it to be formulaic. So they're completely accurate. Where was my favorite one? Hang on. It's really long. I'm scrolling down. Imagine if Broken Bonds, Harry Potter and Captain Planet had a baby, then one day that child, who was 100% a theatre kid in high school, went on to have a fever dream while watching Twilight, specifically New Moon. That's this series. This is quite possibly one of the worst series I've ever read. It's a random assortment of poorly formed ideas, and every idea the author had clearly ended up in this story. I'm pretty sure I was just reading bullet points. This is without doubt a Wattpad story. It wasn't. Words aren't even capitalized at the beginning of sentences. No edits, just vibes. But it's so bad it's good. This is top tier 1-star gold. It's absolute chaos in the worst way possible.
Oh, so, I mean, the first part of that, you could use that in your advertising.
I have used that. I've even used the whole bit about it being like top tier 1-star gold. Like, I think it then finishes by saying, this reminds me of the movies on the Sci-Fi Channel. It is the Sharknado of the book world.
A lot of people love Sharknado.
So, I mean, I take umbrage at the no capital letters in my sentences, because there absolutely are. But the rest of it, you kind of just have to laugh at it. It's just, it's not their cup of tea.
And I think it's also worth making the point of this now is that the vast majority of bad reviews, of 1-star reviews, are not that you've written a bad book, that you've got the wrong reader is the answer there. So you've got somebody who wanted one thing and got another, which is why marketing is so important to dovetail everything. The old, what was it, Swiss cheese model?
Yeah.
So important to get that right. Otherwise you get 1-star reviews. I mean, I suspect some of those 1-stars that I read out, the ones saying this was childish and unrealistic and unlikely, I can almost guarantee that what's happened there is a former RAF engineer or mechanic who's now in his 60s was bought this book by one of their family, because it looks like a great book with an RAF roundel on the front, to buy for somebody's ex-RAF, but they don't read novels. And I've noticed this. I've had service people say, oh, I used to fly this, so I can read this if you want. I always say to them, do you read novels? Who's your favorite novelist? And if they say, well, I don't really read novels, I don't want them to read my book, because they're going to find it silly and far-fetched. But if you read novels, you get it. You get that this is a novel. It's an adventure story. It suspends a bit of disbelief. You need to suspend a bit of disbelief. It plays with realities. It is, of course, extraordinary, because writing a book about the ordinary day-to-day life in the RAF is non-fiction and boring. And so I know that is the wrong reader, not the wrong book, if you know what I mean. And that's another thing to bear in mind.
Yeah, it is. And I know personally, I think I might have mentioned this before, when I get a viral video on TikTok, my review average always goes down, because you're not targeting as, it gets past a certain point on TikTok and you're reaching a much wider pool of people. And some people will just give it a go. It's not necessarily the sort of thing that they would normally read. They've just gone, yeah, okay, that sounds all right. They don't really necessarily even read the blurb properly on Amazon. They just download, give it a go, and then, DNF it at 30% because that they weren't looking for that particular thing. So the ones where they say things like, oh, there was insta love in this and I hate that. It was totally unbelievable. She just moves to this magic town and falls in love with someone in the first 5 minutes. It's full of sex. There's too much sex in it. It's like, well, that's the wrong book for you. And you have kind of, I've reached the wrong readers through TikTok. And they've maybe just, read an excerpt that wasn't necessarily spicy and then downloaded it. But essentially my book is spicy, insta love, fast paced. Like, that's what it is. And that's how I write. So I'm always going to have reviews where people comment on the fact that it's too fast paced, or it's, there's not enough long passages of world building, but that's not how I write. So I think there is a point as well where you have to sit back and go, I've had people say before that they've had feedback on their characters being too emotional, for example, like, oh, this male MMC was far too emotional. But if that's the sort of character you write, and if that's the sort of character you like to write, you don't necessarily have to change that. If you've still got lots of people buying your books and the majority is still enjoying them, don't force yourself to do something different just because a couple of people don't like it. There is a point where it's like, this is your voice and this is your way of telling stories. So not everyone's going to enjoy that.
What's insta-love? Can
insta-love
I have some?
is where...
Can we all get that?
Yeah, it's where they just fall in love really quickly.
Okay.
But,
so you don't add water, it comes out of a packet.
No. I mean, close enough.
So I just want to deal with this area I started with, which is, when do you start taking them seriously? I think there has to be a point when you're below 4.0 average. That's not a good marketing place to be.
Yeah.
And we are wary of that in publishing companies in terms of Vinci and my own books. One of my books fell below 4 in Germany and I pulled it. And because of that, got it retranslated. So if you're falling below 4, you probably, and if you're below 3, definitely, you need to be perhaps reading the reviews at that point, however painful that is, and thinking what, and again, don't necessarily think of, have I written this? I mean, it might be typos, but it might be that you've just mismarketed it. The front cover and the title are suggesting one thing, like a Western romance, and you filled it with sex. Well, most Western romances are sweet. Not all, by all means, but it's a very strong. So you're getting a lot of Western romance readers reading this, and they were immediately going to give you 1 star, 2 star, because they do not like the vulgarity of Insta love or whatever. So it's that sort of thing. That's when you do perhaps need to read the reviews and think, I need to fix this. And it might not be, you might not want to read them because you think they're going to tell me I can't write. They're probably not going to tell you that. They're going to tell you you've written a book that's not quite aligning with the expectation of the reader.
Yeah. And I think one thing that you can do, if you really, I'm somebody who traditionally, I do take things personally. I am that sort of person. And I thought I would really, really struggle. I don't, but I've given this advice to other people, which is if you really feel like you can't do it, or if you're not in the headspace to do it, ask a friend to do it. Just say to them, can you go through my 1 star, 2 star reviews and bullet point anything that's a common theme? If lots of people are saying this book is littered with typos, it's terrible, then you've got to go and get it re-edited. You've got to think about that. If lots of people are giving the same feedback, and then you can kind of be a bit more objective, because I think sometimes in reviews, readers can get quite passionate or they can use quite emotive words. Whereas if you can get a friend to just break it down into bullet point form, you can be a bit more detached from it, and you're not necessarily taking it as a personal insult, but just like, okay, is this something that I need to pay attention to?
Yeah. There's also a point to make here that you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs type thing. If you're going to avoid getting all sorts of negative reviews, you're also not going to get 5-star reviews. You're going to write something benign that doesn't upset people too much. And you can't do that. You've got to write something that some people are going to get and they're going to love it, and a minority probably just aren't going to get. And that's okay as well. Having actually a polarization of 1 stars, not many 2, 3, and 4, but loads of 5 stars, and then some 1 stars. That's not a bad position to be in, because it means you're impacting the right audience. I think I have that a little bit with this book because it's more mystery than it is thriller. It's more of a puzzle for the guy to solve with things going. And I know that if you read a lot of James Patterson and Clive Cussler, that sort of book, they're more thriller than they are mystery. So the action happens on every page. In my book, there's some action bits in there, but they're fewer and far between. It's much more to do with trying to puzzle out what's going on. And so the James Patterson readers are the ones who've said, this is boring, this is slow. But the people who like the kind of not Tom Clancy, I'm going to try to give an example of Dan Brown. People who like those sort of books are much more drawn to my book. Which brings me on to the next point to talk about, which is how to deal with negative reviews if you don't need to worry about them, if they're not, haven't dragged your average down, to keep yourself from becoming too depressed by them. And I've got a couple of tips that I've got.
Okay, so have I. You do your tips first.
Okay, so I've got 2. One is, and someone told me this a long time ago, is to spend an afternoon or get a friend to do this, to print out a load of 5-star glowing reviews, cut them up, fold them up and put them into a glass jar. And every now and again.
That's my tip.
Is that your tip?
I think I told you that.
Oh, that's an old tip. Yes, and then Paul, is that what you were going to say?
That really is my tip, yeah.
I'm sorry.
A review jar.
A review jar. Okay, well, I'll let you explain that if you've done that. My other tip then is to think of a book you really like and that is universally a bestseller, and look up the 1-star reviews for it.
You've just stolen both of my tabs.
Is that your other one?
Say now. That was my other one.
Are you like that person on Pointless who pretends that they were going to get the answers that have been given in front of them? Oh yeah, I was going to give that one. So, for instance, The Da Vinci Code, one of the best-selling books of all time, an absolute gripping, page-turning book. I think one of the great examples of how to write a page-turning novel. If you look it up, there's 400 1-star reviews here, and just read them. One of the worst, if not the worst book I've ever read, from offended, up by the writing, not the theme. 1 star, much ado about not much. So this is The Da Vinci Code. this has caused a media frenzy, or the writing is below average, blah, blah, blah. And, you can read one of these hugely successful books that's made hundreds of millions of dollars, and you'll see reviews that are worse for this book than probably the ones you've read for your book. So that's another way of putting into context the reality of opening yourself up to the masses. So you're going to get a bit of this.
Yeah, I mean, you just stole both of my tips. The review jar is something that I've done for friends actually before, and printed off their reviews to them and put them in a jar. And it's not just actually for when you're dealing with bad reviews, but if you're just having a day where you're really doubting yourself, because we all have those days where we're really just feeling like, I can't do this. It's a brilliant thing to have. And I really don't think that we celebrate our good reviews enough. If we're going to pay attention to the bad ones and look at what we can learn from the bad ones, we should also, and actually this is something I think Becca Syme talks about it in her Strengths for Writers course. If you look at your good reviews, you can learn what your strengths are as a writer, and then that can influence the type of stories that you write next. Like if everybody is saying, oh my God, this author writes insta-love so well, I love it, I love the way they do this, or they write the best enemies to lovers stories, they're so good, then you can go, okay, that's a real strength of mine. Maybe I'll lean into that in the future. So if you're going to mine your bad reviews for feedback, do it with the good reviews as well. And yeah, I do the same thing with looking up famous books. I was just looking at Pride and Prejudice because, it's got like 40,000 reviews. And then there's all these 1 stars that's just like, I mean, it's Pride and Prejudice, really? But that's the point, isn't it? Like people are entitled to their opinion. I think my most important thing, my important takeaway is don't respond to them. Don't ever respond, because people will also comment on your Facebook ads, things like that. Because I know you can't respond on Amazon, but the number of times people have gone away and read my book, and then it's almost like they've tracked the Facebook ad down, and Facebook's probably just advertised to them again, and they'll comment with a terrible comment. Don't respond, just ignore it.
Yeah.
It's not worth your time and
never,
energy.
Ever argue, because ultimately the customer is always right as well.
Yeah.
From where that customer sits, this is the most boring book in the world. And that's not for me to say, no, it's not at all. It's absolutely not for me to say that. In fact, if I'm clever, I agree with them. So it probably is for you the most boring book. You've chosen the wrong book, but I really hope you find, the next author you pick up is the one that's going to match your expectations.
Yeah. And I think readers need to feel safe and like they're allowed to express an opinion. So there's nothing that winds them up more and will really get you a legion of people who dislike you strongly than if an author goes on a bit of a rant on TikTok or Instagram or wherever about readers giving them bad reviews, because they're entitled to. If we want their good feedback, we've got to accept their bad feedback as well. I mean, it's kind of polite that most reviewers, especially if you've sent something out as kind of like an ARC copy, if they don't enjoy it, they don't say anything. That's kind of the done thing with ARC copies. But again, that's part of the deal. You can't make them give you a good review. You can't make them promise that. You've got to just accept that you're giving them this book for their honest feedback. Because I've had people do that as well. Like they've given books to their ARC team and they've got a bad review from them. And then they've been like, well, I'm removing you from my ARC team. I'm not going to give you the book in the future. And it's like that they're entitled to their opinion. So you've got to let them have it. What I don't like is when readers tag authors in bad reviews. I find that quite poor form, just from the point of view of we're people.
Yeah.
Like, I might wake up one morning and just be in a really bad headspace and not really want to sit and read a character assassination. So I think it's a bit mean when they do that, but just resist the urge, go away, do something else, think about something else. Don't feed the trolls.
Don't feed the trolls. Okay, so and you agree that the 4.0 and above is necessary for marketing, or?
I think you can get away with 3.8. I know that seems quite specific. Maybe that's a genre thing. I think in romance you can get away with lower, especially if it's the end of romance where it's almost like comedy romance, like So Bad It's Good. The ones like Kissed by the Coronavirus or, various other weird titles. Those ones,
Kissed by the Coronavirus.
Yeah, those ones can be, 2 stars and people will still download them because they're looking for the Sharknado type books. Yeah, I think 3.8 you can get away with. if it dropped any lower than that, I would really be concerned and thinking, no. But again, it does very much depend on the volume as well. I think you have got to look at the volume, because there are some books like, I think Nikki St. Crow writes a dark romance Peter Pan retelling. And I know that her first in series is rated really low. It's 3 point something. And she still sells an absolute ton of books because she's got like 50,000 reviews or something. So when you weight it and when you look at it, it might just be that her average is 3, but she's sold so many that it doesn't really matter. So I think it's always harder when you're starting out. And I've had people before and it hurts. Like when you publish your first book and you've got 5 reviews and your average is, 4.6, and then you get a 1 star and it drags it right down just because you don't have that many. It's getting the first probably up to 100 can feel like a real balancing act. One thing I would suggest though, if you do have that dip in reviews, and I do this if I do get a TikTok video that blows up and then my reviews drop, I'm not asking for good reviews, but I will email my mailing list and just nudge them and say, if you've read my books and you haven't reviewed yet, I'd really appreciate it if you would review. And then a lot of the time that does just give them that little push to go and post a review that they've been meaning to post. And it will quite often bump that average back up. So don't pester your mailing list for reviews. But once in a while, it's okay to kind of drop in and remind people, hey, I'm here. And if you like me, go post a review. And if they're on your mailing list, chances are they do like you.
Yeah,
so
that's a really good point.
Bump it back up.
Something you can do. And again, another reason for having a mailing list we talked about earlier, you can mobilize your army to say, look, drop me a review. You don't have to say, I've just dropped below 4.0. If you do, you want to nudge it up a bit, get your friends and, on your mailing list to nudge it up. Without busting the terms of Amazon, make sure you're aware of that. You can't ask for reviews in return for anything, but you can ask people to review your book. Absolutely. Okay, just to wrap up this discussion about reviews, I'm going to see if you can guess what book this is. So this is a 1-star review. The headline is really, really bad. And this is the first paragraph. Oh God, this book was laughably bad. I hate to DNF a book, but this one brought me close to doing so many times. It was truly a painful read. I don't get the hype behind this book at all. The only reason I finished the book is because it was a train wreck. I couldn't look away. And then Elizabeth lists 8 points detailing why this is the worst book that's ever been read. And let me just tell you the overall stats for the book. It has 386,501 global ratings. 78% are 5 stars.
Is it Fourth Wing?
It is not, but not too far off. That's the same era. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover.
Is it?
So that is a book that's as close to universally loved as you can get. 78 plus 16, what's that? 88, 94. 94% for 386,000 people who reviewed it, gave it a 4 or 5 star review. That's as close as you're going to get to universally, this is a good book. You're going to get. And yet there is a 2,000 word essay on why this is the worst book that's ever been read. And Elizabeth M, presumably, I said you can never argue with people, but she presumably believes she's right, that this is a terrible book, and she's the only one who happens to have noticed that. It's very hard, isn't it, to take a step back and say, yes, it is a bad book for you, but it's, again, probably somebody who's picked up the wrong book.
I mean, I didn't particularly enjoy that book, but I read it. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I didn't think it was the worst book ever written. No, I'm not. I'll tell you what, the only review that ever got to me, and this was a case where I was like fuming, and it was because it was my last book in the series. It was the 6th book, and it was the first review that went up, and it was, I think it must have been someone on my art team, and they literally tore it to pieces to start with, but also ruined every single spoiler. They spoiled the whole thing, every single little thing that had been building up for the whole of the 6 books that was supposed to be the big shocking moments in the book. They went through all of them, and they didn't. A lot of the time, it's etiquette really that reviewers will put spoiler alert at the top, so that people, so that the story isn't ruined for people. And they didn't do that. And I was like, that's the only review that's ever made me feel legitimately angry. But even then, I had to take a step back and go, other reviewers are actually going to find that quite annoying as well. Eventually, it's going to get buried in all the other reviews, But I allowed myself a few minutes to be raging about that one. It's not. We're not supposed to be. We're not saying that you're supposed to be some sort of superhuman person who doesn't get affected by things. Of course you are. Like, you're allowed to feel upset. You're allowed to feel a little bit indignant. You're allowed to go, of course it's not a Wattpad story. Of course AI didn't write it. But just don't let it fester. Like, don't let it, just look at the bigger picture, which is all the good reviews. You're selling books. You're finding readers, or just you're learning. Like, maybe you're just learning to be a better writer, because everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I've had 2 reviews this year on The Final Flight. That book, I read out those negative reviews earlier, and they are Cold War thriller, 5 stars, absolutely fantastic read from start to finish. As an aircraft and Cold War enthusiast, it was a must read, and I binge read it. And the last one on the 9th of January, just a few days ago, 5 stars, a most engrossing novel for any aircraft fanatic. I bought this book to read over the Christmas break, wasn't disappointed, finished reading all 550 pages in less than a week. This book is a thriller with many twists and turns, leaves you sitting on the edge of your seat. Many of the situations are described beautifully. You almost believe it's a true story and you're actually there. So that's lovely, isn't it? It doesn't take many couple of reviews of 5-star and suddenly you're feeling back up again and ignoring those 1 stars. And remember, the 1 stars are probably the wrong readers, not bad writing.
They are. I just had a little quick look at mine, and like the last 4 are all like hot read. Wow, this was such a gripping read. So many unexpected twists and turns. Couldn't put it down. Loved it from start to finish. So, let's just go look at the good ones.
Yeah.
Concentrate on those.
Good. Okay, look, we were going to mention at the beginning, but we forgot, the Irish Publishing Show. We'll give it a proper plug next week, but we are both going to be there, and it's coming up soon. It's in March. So we're going to be crossing the Irish Sea, and we're going to be giving a talk together. I'm going to be doing one individually as well about book packaging. So what we're going to talk about together, we'll have to have another planning meeting. Have another IRL meeting. We do have a discount code if you want to come and join us and have a glass of the black stuff, I guess, in Ireland in the evening. There is a discount that they very kindly provided for us, and I'll provide a link to if you want to go to indiewritersclub.com/Ireland, RELAND, and that will be in return, you'll get an email with the link and the discount code to join us in Ireland. It's going to be, if you're in the UK, there are so many dirt cheap flights to Dublin and Shannon.
Really, I was looking today because I need to book mine. I think they're about £16 from Stansted each way. I think it starts the day after St Patrick's Day, doesn't it?
Yeah, so if
you want to arrive a day early.
Yeah, they are doing something on St Patrick's Day. So if you get there on the 17th of March.
Are they? Awesome.
Which is the day we're going to get, because I need to confirm all my details as well. 17th, I think we're doing Monday to Thursday.
I don't know. We were going to talk about
Monday to Thursday,
flights and things, weren't we? Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, anyway, we'll give that a proper plug at the beginning of the show next week. But hopefully people have enjoyed this discussion on what do we talk about? Reviews. It's so long ago, I've forgotten. A bit bamboozled.
You're too busy thinking about all your bad reviews.
No, they've gone now. I'm being filled by Mr. T with that last review. It's Mr. T, who doesn't like flying even. Old reference joke.
Well, I'm going to go get my review jar out now.
Yes.
And console myself with that.
Good. Okay, thanks very much, Cara.
Thank you. See you soon.
Bye.
Sign up for episode alerts at indiewritersclub.com. Come and chat with us at our exclusive Discord server at indiewritersclub.com/Discord. Or join our Facebook group at indiewritersclub.com/Facebook. And you can support the podcast at indiewritersclub.com/support. And don't forget to share your weekly word counts, because no matter what you've achieved this week, we're here to cheer you on. Thank you for being part of the Indie Writers Club.
The Indie Writers Club was brought to you by Publish Drive. With one click, self-publish your ebooks, audiobooks and print books to thousands of stores and libraries worldwide. And now you can start for free forever. Publish Drive's new free plan lets you publish your first ebook absolutely free. No subscription fees, no commissions, keep 100% of the royalties. Get your titles online in just a few minutes at publishdrive.com.